Welcome back to Nightmare Reads. Tonight, we have 3 true, unsettling stories that all happened in the dead of night during storms, on empty roads, and in places where help was far away. These are grounded, realistic encounters that might make you double-check your locks before going to sleep. So if you enjoy rain-soaked horror stories like these, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one. Now, let's get into the first story. My name is Marcus, and at the time this happened, I was living in a small town called Ashford, tucked away in the rainy part of Western Oregon. If you have never been out there, it is the kind of place where the clouds roll in around October and basically do not leave until spring. Everything is damp. The trees are always dripping. The roads shine black at night, and when it rains hard enough, the whole town feels like it is underwater. I was 26 then, living alone in a house that was honestly too big for one person. It was an old single-story place built sometime in the 70s, with creaky hardwood floors, a basement I almost never went into, and a long, narrow hallway that connected my bedroom to the rest of the house. That hallway always felt strange at night. During the day, it was nothing. Just a normal hallway with framed pictures on the wall and a bathroom halfway down. But once the lights were off, it felt twice as long. Like the kind of hallway you did not want to stare down for too long. I was not completely alone though. I had Duke, my black lab. I got him from a shelter when he was still a puppy, and by this point, he was about 5 years old. 60 pounds of muscle, loyalty, and bad breath. Duke followed me everywhere. If I went to the kitchen, he went to the kitchen. If I went to the bathroom, he waited outside the door. If I got up in the middle of the night, he lifted his head immediately, like he was clocking in for a security shift. That is why what happened that night scared me as much as it did. Because Duke knew something was wrong before I did. This happened in late October. Halloween had just passed, and I remember that because there were still 2 pumpkins rotting on my front porch. I kept telling myself I would throw them out, but after a while they had started sinking into themselves, soft and gross, like they were melting into the wood. That night, the rain started around 9, and this was not normal drizzle. This was a full-on storm. Rain hitting the roof so hard, I had to turn the TV up. Wind pushing against the windows. The occasional flash of lightning lighting up the living room for half a second, followed by thunder that sounded like furniture being dragged across the sky. I actually liked storms back then. There was something comforting about being inside while everything outside was going crazy. I made myself a frozen pizza, watched a few episodes of some show I had been binging, and let Duke stretch out beside me on the couch. Around midnight, I decided to call it a night. Here is the detail that matters. I always closed my bedroom door before going to sleep. Always. It was not because I was paranoid. Duke had this habit of wandering around at 3 or 4 in the morning, knocking things over or sniffing through the trash. So I kept the bedroom door shut to keep him in the room with me. Every single night, for almost 2 years, that door was closed when I went to bed. That night was no different. I remember pulling it shut and hearing the latch click. I remember Duke jumping onto the foot of the bed, turning around twice, then dropping down with that heavy, tired sigh dogs do. I remember lying there in the dark, listening to the rain hammer against the roof until it started to lull me to sleep. Then, I was out. I woke up all at once. Not slowly, not half asleep. I snapped awake like someone had clapped their hands right next to my ear. My eyes opened, and my heart was already pounding. I did not move for a few seconds. I just lay there on my back, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what had pulled me out of sleep. You know that feeling when you wake up and instantly know something is wrong, even before you understand why? It was that. No sound. No movement, just this deep gut feeling that something in the room had changed while I was asleep. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. 2:14 a.m. The storm was still going. The rain was coming down hard, drumming against the roof in a steady, relentless rhythm. The thunder had mostly stopped by then. Now it was just rain. Heavy rain. The kind that makes everything outside disappear. Then, I turned my head toward the bedroom door, and my entire body went cold. It was open. Wide open. Pushed all the way back until it touched the wall. For a second, my brain refused to accept it. I blinked a few times, thinking maybe I was still half asleep, or maybe the darkness was playing tricks on me. But no. The door I clearly remembered closing before bed was now open, and beyond it was the hallway. Long, narrow, and completely black. I did not move. I barely breathed. I just stared into that dark hallway with my phone in my hand, feeling my grip tighten around it. Then I noticed Duke. He was awake, but he was not moving. Normally, if my bedroom door opened in the middle of the night, Duke would be off the bed in half a second. He would run into the hallway, sniff around, bark, do something. But he was frozen. I mean, completely frozen. His body was stiff. His ears were pinned back. His head was pointed toward the open doorway, and his eyes were locked on the darkness outside my room. He was not looking around. He was staring, like there was something standing there that only he could see. "Duke," I whispered. My voice came out thin and weak. "Hey, buddy." He did not turn, did not wag his tail, did not even blink. That was when the fear really started to settle in. I reached for the lamp on my nightstand and clicked it on. The room filled with a weak yellow light that somehow made the shadows in the hallway look darker. I sat up, swung my legs over the side of the bed, and put my bare feet on the hardwood floor. It was freezing. My phone battery was at 12%. Of course it was. I still do not know why I got up to investigate. Looking back, I should have locked the door, shoved the dresser in front of it, and called the cops right there. But in the moment, your brain fights for normal explanations. Maybe the latch did not catch. Maybe the wind shook the house and the door opened. Maybe Duke bumped it somehow. None of those explanations made much sense, but I wanted them to. Because the other explanation was that somebody had opened my bedroom door while I was sleeping, and I was not ready to accept that. I turned on my phone flashlight and stepped into the hallway. The beam cut through the dark, landing on the bathroom door first. Open, empty, I took one step, then another. The floorboards creaked under my weight. Every sound felt way too loud between the gusts of rain. I looked back once. Duke had not followed me. That was the first time in 5 years that dog did not follow me out of a room. He stayed on the bed, rigid and silent, watching me walk into the hallway. I checked the bathroom. Nothing. I checked the spare bedroom door. Still closed. I pressed my ear to it for a moment and listened. Nothing but rain hitting the window inside. Then I kept walking toward the living room. That was when I saw the front door. It was open, not wide open, just cracked maybe 3 or 4 inches. Rain was blowing in through the gap, and there was already a small puddle forming on the hardwood by the entrance. The wind made this low whistling sound through the opening, like someone breathing through their teeth. And then I smelled it. Cigarette smoke. Faint, but definitely there. I do not smoke. I never have. My ex-girlfriend Cara did not smoke either, and she was the only other person who had ever lived in that house. There was no reason for my living room to smell like cigarettes at 2 in the morning. I stood there with my flashlight pointed at the cracked front door, trying to understand what I was seeing. If someone had come in, why leave the door open? If they had left, why was my bedroom door open too? And if they were still inside, where were they? Then I heard it. A footstep. Wet, heavy. The sound of a soaked shoe pressing down on hardwood. It came from the kitchen, about 15 feet to my left. I turned the flashlight toward the kitchen doorway, but the beam only reached part of the entrance. The rest of the kitchen was dark. Then came another step. Slower this time, deliberate, like whoever was in there knew exactly where I was standing. My whole body locked up. I wanted to run, but my legs would not move. I was standing there barefoot, in a t-shirt and boxers, holding a phone flashlight like that was going to protect me from anything. I tried to say, "Who's there?" Nothing came out. My throat felt closed. The rain kept pounding against the house. Somewhere outside, thunder rolled far away. Then, in the short silence after it faded, I heard a voice. A whisper, low and rough. It was coming from the kitchen. I could not understand the words. It sounded like muttering, like someone talking to themselves under their breath. But it was close, maybe 10 feet away. Someone was standing in my kitchen at 2 in the morning, in the middle of a storm, whispering to themselves in the dark. That was all I needed. I turned and ran. I do not think I have ever moved that fast in my life. My feet slapped against the floor as I sprinted down the hallway. I did not look back. I did not want to know if somebody was coming after me. I got to the bedroom, slammed the door shut, and locked it. The lock was one of those cheap little indoor locks that you could probably open with a butter knife, so I grabbed the dresser and dragged it in front of the door. It was heavy oak, packed with clothes, and it screamed against the floor as I shoved it into place. For some reason, that sound helped. It made me feel like I was doing something. Duke was still on the bed, still stiff, still staring at the door. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost hit the wrong buttons. The operator answered after 2 rings. 911. What's your emergency? Someone's in my house, I said. I woke up and my front door was open. There's someone in my kitchen. I heard footsteps. I heard a voice. Please send someone. She asked for my address. I gave it to her twice, because the first time I spoke too fast. She told me officers were on the way and to stay on the line. I sat on the floor with my back against the dresser. Duke finally got down from the bed and pressed himself against my side. He was shaking. That might have been the worst part. This big black lab, the dog who barked at delivery drivers and raccoons and trash cans blowing over in the wind, was trembling so hard I could feel it through my leg. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Just rain. Just wind. Just the operator's voice quietly asking if I could still hear her. I started second-guessing myself. Maybe the footsteps had been the house settling. Maybe the whisper was the wind coming through the open door. Maybe the cigarette smell was drifting in from outside somehow. Maybe I had woken up from a nightmare and built the rest of it in my head. Then I heard the front door. It closed. Not slammed. Not blown shut. Closed. A firm pull, followed by the clear click of the latch catching. Someone had just shut my front door from the outside. Then there was nothing but the storm. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. 2 officers showed up, Officer Daniels and Officer Reyes. I dragged the dresser away from the bedroom door and let them in through the front. I probably sounded insane trying to explain it. I told them I woke up at 2:14. I told them my bedroom door had been wide open. I told them Duke had been staring at the hallway. I told them the front door was cracked, the living room smelled like cigarette smoke, and I heard footsteps and whispering from the kitchen. They searched the entire house. Every room, every closet, under every bed. They checked the basement too, which I had not gone into in months. They found no one. No broken window. No forced entry. No muddy footprints. At least nothing clear. The rain had already washed the porch clean. The only proof that anything had happened was the puddle by the front door and the faint smell of cigarette smoke still hanging in the living room. Then, Officer Daniels asked me something that made my stomach drop. Is there anyone else who has a key to this house? I immediately thought of Kara, my ex-girlfriend. We had broken up about 4 months earlier, and it was not exactly clean. There had been shouting, slammed doors, long texts, all of it. When she moved out, everything happened so fast that I never asked for my spare key back. That seemed like the obvious answer. Except it was not. I called her the next morning after the police left. I had spent the rest of the night on the couch, with every light in the house turned on and a kitchen knife in my lap. Kara swore she had been at her sister's apartment in Portland all week. She sent pictures. Time-stamped, she sent texts. Her sister confirmed it. And I know people lie, especially after bad breakups. But she was not lying. Whoever had been in my house that night was not her. I still tried to stay there after that. I told myself I was being dramatic. I told myself it was probably some drunk guy who wandered in by mistake, got scared, and left. But deep down, I knew that did not make sense. A drunk stranger would not open my bedroom door. A drunk stranger would not stand in my kitchen whispering, and a drunk stranger would not know how to get inside without breaking anything. About a week later, I found the thing that made me move out. I was cleaning the spare bedroom, packing things into boxes, because even though I had not fully admitted it yet, I already knew I could not stay there. I got down on my knees to check under the bed, thinking maybe an old charger or some socks had rolled underneath. My fingers brushed something small and dry. I pulled it out. A cigarette butt. Not old, not dusty, not yellowed like it had been sitting there for years. Fresh, like someone had smoked it recently, put it out, and left it there. Then, I saw the piece of paper beside it. It was folded once. I picked it up with shaking hands and opened it. There was one sentence written on it in small, cramped handwriting. I like the rain too. I do not know how long I stood there staring at those words. Maybe 10 seconds, maybe 10 minutes. Because in that moment, everything clicked into place. Someone had not just walked into my house that night. Someone had been inside long enough to leave that note. Someone had been in the spare bedroom, under the bed. Maybe before I woke up. Maybe while I was awake. I moved out 2 weeks later. I took Duke, some clothes, my laptop, and whatever I could fit into my car. I drove 3 hours east and never went back. I live in an apartment now. 3rd floor. Deadbolt. Security chain. Cameras in the hallway. Every window gets checked. Every door gets checked twice before I go to sleep. And Duke does not sleep at the foot of the bed anymore. He sleeps right next to me, close enough that I can reach down in the dark and feel his fur. Most nights, I am okay. But when it rains hard at night, that same heavy Oregon kind of rain, I cannot sleep. I just lie there, staring at my bedroom door, waiting to see if it slowly swings open, waiting to hear wet footsteps in the hallway. My name is Derek, and a couple years back, I was working the graveyard shift at a gas station just off Highway 19 in rural Pennsylvania. If you have never driven through that part of the state at night, it is nothing but trees, farmland, long empty roads, and the occasional deer standing in your headlights like you are the one who showed up where you were not supposed to be. It is the kind of place where your GPS drops out for no reason. Your radio catches static, old country stations, and sometimes those late-night preacher broadcasts that sound like they are coming from another decade. I was 23 at the time, fresh out of community college, broke, and still trying to figure out what I was doing with my life. My buddy Travis knew the guy who managed the station and put in a word for me. The pay was garbage, barely above minimum wage, but the night shift paid an extra $2 an hour. At that point, $2 extra an hour sounded pretty good. I figured it would be easy. Sit behind the counter, ring up the occasional trucker buying coffee or beef jerky at 3 in the morning, scroll through my phone, maybe mop the floor if I got bored enough, then collect a paycheck. That was what I thought I was signing up for. The gas station itself was exactly what you would picture. A small box of a building with harsh fluorescent lights that made everything look slightly green. 2 pumps out front, one of which was always acting up, a flickering sign above the lot that buzzed so loudly you could hear it from inside. Behind the counter, there was a cramped back room with a mini fridge, a microwave that looked like it had not been cleaned in years, and a chair with a spring sticking through the cushion. Around the whole place, there was basically nothing. Just trees, bare November trees, stretching in every direction, their branches scratching against each other whenever the wind picked up. The night this happened was in early November. I remember that because my manager, Ron, had just taped this sad little cardboard turkey decoration to the front window. Ron was one of those tired-looking guys who always smelled like cigarettes and burnt coffee. Before he left that evening, he stood by the door, pulled his jacket on, and said, "Keep an eye on the weather tonight." I asked him why. "Storm's coming in," he said. "Big one. Probably won't see a single customer after 10. If it gets real bad, just lock the door and call me." Then he laughed like he was joking. He was not wrong about the storm. By 9 o'clock, the rain was coming down in buckets. Not a light shower, not drizzle. This was the kind of rain that hit the roof so hard, it sounded like someone was dumping gravel on top of the building. The wind shoved against the windows. The power flickered twice. Just quick little blinks, but enough to make the lights buzz and the security monitor behind the counter go black for half a second before coming back on. By 11, the parking lot was basically a lake. Water pooled around the pumps, reflecting the yellow and red glow of the sign in broken, rippling shapes. Highway 19 out front was completely empty. No headlights. No taillights. Not even a deer. Just darkness, rain, and that lonely buzzing sign above the lot. I was in the back room, sitting in that busted chair, watching videos on my phone and eating a gas station hot dog that had probably been on the roller since lunch. Real healthy stuff. And honestly, I was kind of enjoying myself. There is something weirdly peaceful about being the only person awake in a place like that. It feels like the whole world is asleep, and you are the only one left to watch over it. That feeling did not last. Sometime around midnight, the little bell above the front door chimed. Ding ding. I almost did not hear it over the rain, but it was definitely there. I set my phone down, wiped my hands on my jeans, and stepped out of the back room. A man was standing just inside the entrance. He was tall, maybe 6'3" or 6'4". He was wearing a heavy dark green rain poncho, the kind you would buy from a camping store, with the hood pulled low over his face. Water dripped off him onto the linoleum floor, forming a dark puddle around his boots. His face was mostly hidden under the hood, but I could see enough to know I did not like what I was looking at. Pale skin, a sharp jaw, wide eyes. Not normal wide, the kind of wide where you can see too much white around the pupils. He did not say anything. He just stood there, dripping rainwater onto the floor, staring at me. "Hey man," I said, trying to sound casual. "Nasty night out there, huh?" He did not respond. He slowly turned his head toward the back of the store, then walked past the aisles toward the coolers. I watched him disappear around the corner. For a second, I just stood there. People do not usually ignore you completely when you talk to them. Even weird customers say something. A grunt, a nod. Anything but late-night gas stations attract all kinds, so I tried not to overthink it. I went behind the counter and waited. A minute passed. Then 2. Then 3. The guy did not come back. The store was not big. 2 aisles, coolers along the back wall, a bathroom, and the back room. That was it. There were not many places a person could go. After 5 minutes, I started feeling that uncomfortable twist in my stomach. Not full fear yet. More like the feeling you get when something does not add up and your brain is trying to solve it before panic sets in. I grabbed the baseball bat Ron kept behind the counter. He had told me to keep it there just in case, which I always thought was dramatic until that night. I walked down the first aisle. Nothing. I walked down the second aisle. Past chips, candy bars, dusty cans of soup, and the cheap phone chargers no one ever bought. Nothing. The coolers hummed quietly along the back wall. Their lights flickered slightly behind the glass doors. The man was gone. I checked the bathroom. Empty. I checked the back room. Empty. I even opened the mop closet, even though it was barely big enough to fit the mop bucket. Nothing. The only exit customers used was the front door. I had been facing that direction the entire time. The bell had not chimed again. At first, my brain went straight to the worst explanation. Then the power flickered again. The whole store blinked. The lights buzzed. The camera monitor went black for maybe 1 second. When it came back, the screen was full of static before it cleared. That gave me just enough of an excuse to calm myself down. Maybe he slipped out during the flicker. Maybe the storm drowned out the bell. Maybe the bell was old and did not ring every time. I needed there to be a logical answer, because the idea of a tall stranger disappearing inside a tiny gas station at midnight was not something I wanted to sit with. So I cleaned up the water by the entrance, put the bat back beside the counter, and told myself I was being stupid. About an hour passed. The storm kept getting worse. The rain came down harder. The wind rattled the windows so badly that every few minutes I thought someone was tapping on the glass. I tried to distract myself. I made another terrible hot dog. I scrolled on my phone. I checked the camera monitor every couple of minutes like I was not scared. But I could not shake that feeling. That crawling pressure at the back of my neck. The feeling that someone was close. Around 1 a.m, I looked up from my phone and glanced out the front window. He was standing at the pumps. Same poncho, same hood, same boots. There was no car in the lot. He was not pumping gas. He was not walking toward the road. He was not looking around for help. He was just standing there, in the middle of the empty parking lot. Rain pouring down on him, facing the store. Facing me. Completely still. My heart started beating so hard, it felt like it was climbing into my throat. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera, zooming in as far as I could. The image was grainy because of the rain and darkness, but I could see enough. He was smiling. A thin, tight smile that did not reach his eyes. And those eyes were locked directly on me. I did not know what to do. Call the cops and say what? There was a man standing outside a gas station? That sounded ridiculous. That was literally what gas stations were for. Part of me was still trying to explain it away. Maybe his truck broke down. Maybe he was waiting for a ride. Maybe he was high, drunk, or just some weird guy who liked standing in the rain. Then, he started walking toward the store. Slowly, not fast, not aggressive, just steady, deliberate steps through the flooded parking lot. His boots splashed through the puddles, one after the other. Splash, ripple, splash, ripple, closer and closer. The bell chimed again. Ding ding. He stepped inside. Water ran off the edges of his poncho and tapped onto the floor. "Can I help you?" I asked. My voice came out weaker than I wanted it to. He took one step forward, then another. Now he was maybe 10 feet from the counter, and I could see his face better. He looked sick. Not injured exactly. Just wrong. His skin was pale, almost gray. There were dark circles under his eyes, and the smile was still there, stretched across his face like someone had drawn it on. "You got a restroom?" he asked. His voice was rough and dry, like he had not used it in a long time. "It's out of order," I lied. I do not know why I said that. The bathroom was working fine, but some instinct in me knew that I should not let this man go any farther into the store. I did not want him past the aisles. I did not want him near the back room. I did not want him anywhere I could not see him. He tilted his head slightly, like a dog hearing a strange sound. His hood shifted, and I caught a glimpse of his hair. Or what was left of it. It was patchy, like it had been pulled out in clumps. "That's a shame," he said. Then he turned around and walked back outside. The bell chimed behind him. Ding ding, and once again he disappeared into the rain. By 2 in the morning, I was a wreck. I locked the front door, which Ron had always told us not to do, unless there was an emergency. Then I wedged a chair under the handle. The baseball bat stayed on the counter beside my hand. I had 911 open on my phone, my thumb hovering over the call button. The storm was at its peak now. The wind was howling against the building, and the rain was coming down so thick that the parking lot lights barely reached beyond the pumps. Everything past the edge of the lot was just black. Then, I saw headlights. 2 bright white beams cut through the storm from the road. A vehicle turned into the parking lot. It was an old pickup truck. Rusted, dented, with one headlight a little dimmer than the other. It rolled slowly across the flooded asphalt and stopped right in front of the store. The engine rumbled. The windshield wipers moved back and forth at full speed. For 1 second, I felt relief. An actual customer. A normal person. Someone I could talk to. Someone I could tell what was happening. Maybe they would stay inside for a few minutes until the police came, or at least until that man left. Then the driver's door opened, and he stepped out. Same poncho, same boots, same hood. He had a truck. He could have left at any time. But he had not. He had stayed nearby and kept coming back. That relief turned into ice in my stomach. I backed away from the counter and grabbed the bat with both hands. He walked up to the front door and pulled the handle. It did not open. He tried it again. Then he stopped. For a few seconds, he just stood there in the rain, looking at the locked door. Then he leaned forward and pressed his face against the glass, both hands flat against the window, his face so close I could see his breath fogging the glass. His wide eyes moved around the store, scanning the counter, the aisles, the back room door, searching for me, for a way in, for something. Then he started knocking. Not pounding, not yelling, just a slow, patient tap with one knuckle. Tap, tap, tap like he had all night, like the storm did not bother him at all. Stores closed, I yelled. My voice cracked halfway through. We're closed. You need to leave. The knocking stopped. He pulled his face back from the glass. For the first time, the hood slipped back enough for me to see him clearly. His patchy hair was plastered to his head, and there was something dark running down the side of his face. Blood, rainwater had thinned it out into red streaks down his cheek. He smiled again. That same tight, lipless smile. Then he said something. I could not hear it through the glass in the rain, but I could read his lips. I'll wait. He went back to his truck, but he did not leave. He sat in the driver's seat with the headlights pointed straight at the store. The wipers kept moving. Swish thump, swish thump. Behind the windshield, I could see the shape of his head, motionless. Watching that was when I called 911. I told the dispatcher everything. The man in the poncho. The first time he came in. The way he disappeared during the power flicker. The blood on his face. The fact that he was now sitting outside in a truck and would not leave. She told me to stay inside, keep the door locked, and get somewhere safe. The nearest state police unit was far away, and with the storm, it could take a while. I asked how long. She said they were coming as fast as they could. That did not make me feel better. I crouched behind the counter with the baseball bat in my hands, trying to keep the front door and the windows in view at the same time. 10 minutes passed. He did not move. 20 minutes. Still nothing. Just rain, wind, headlights, and that dark silhouette behind the windshield. At one point, I saw him raise his hand. A slow wave. Almost friendly. Somehow, that was worse than if he had tried to break in. Around the 30-minute mark, something changed. His headlights flickered. Then, they went out. The whole parking lot dropped into darkness. Except for the buzzing sign above the pumps casting a weak yellow glow through the rain. I could barely make out the truck. Then, the driver's door opened. I stood up behind the counter and raised the bat. My hands were slick with sweat. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it over the storm. He stepped out, but instead of walking toward the store, he turned away from it. He walked past the pumps, past the edge of the parking lot, straight toward the tree line. Then, he disappeared into the woods, just vanished into the darkness between the trees. 5 minutes later, the police arrived. 2 cruisers pulled in with red and blue lights flashing through the rain. The officers searched the store first, then the parking lot, then the edge of the woods. They found the truck sitting exactly where he had left it. The plates came back stolen. The truck had been reported missing 3 days earlier from a town about 60 miles away. Then, they looked in the bed of the truck. Under a tarp weighed down with cinder blocks, they found a shovel, a roll of duct tape, and a hunting knife with what looked like dried blood on the handle. That was when I stopped trying to tell myself I had overreacted. The police searched the woods for 2 days. They brought in dogs after the storm cleared. They checked nearby roads, farms, and abandoned properties. They never found him. No arrest. No name. Nothing. It was like the trees had swallowed him whole. I quit that job 2 days later. Ron was annoyed, but I did not care. There was no amount of extra night shift pay that could get me back behind that counter after dark. I moved back in with my parents for a few months and took a landscaping job where I worked outside in broad daylight with other people around me. No more graveyard shifts, no more isolated buildings, no more storms. But the thing that still gets to me happened about a month later. I was scrolling through local news on my phone when I saw a story that made my blood run cold. A woman had been attacked at a rest stop about 30 miles from that gas station. Same description. Tall man. Green rain poncho. Old pickup truck. Watching through the window before trying to get inside. She had managed to lock herself in the bathroom and call the police before anything happened. They still had not caught him. A detective called me a few days after that. He said they had found one more thing in the glove compartment of the stolen truck. A folded map of Pennsylvania. It had been opened and closed so many times that the creases were starting to tear. On that map, someone had circled locations in red marker. Gas stations, rest stops, truck stops, all along Highway 19, all remote, all open late. There were dozens of circles, and one of them was around the gas station where I worked. Right next to that circle, someone had drawn a check mark. My name is Jenna, and 3 years ago, I made a decision that almost cost me my life. It was one of those split-second choices that does not seem important when you make it. The kind of choice you barely think about. But later, when you are lying awake at 3 in the morning, replaying every detail in your head, you realize that one little decision was the thread everything else was hanging from. I was 24 at the time, living in a small apartment in Richmond, Virginia. My best friend since high school, Amanda, had recently moved to a tiny town called Miller's Creek, about 2 hours west, near the West Virginia border. It was one of those places you do not end up in unless you know someone there. Winding roads, scattered farmhouses, long stretches of woods, more cows than people. The kind of place where the streetlights end before the town actually does. Amanda had been asking me to visit for weeks. She and her boyfriend had bought a little house on 5 acres, and she kept talking about how peaceful it was out there. She said you could actually see the stars at night. She said the silence felt complete, like the whole world had been turned down. So on a Friday in mid-November, I packed an overnight bag, filled up my tank, and drove west. The drive there was fine. A little boring, honestly. Mostly highway, radio static, and the occasional trucker flashing his lights for no reason. I got to Amanda's place around 4 in the afternoon, and we spent the evening catching up. Pizza, wine, bad reality TV. It was exactly what I needed. For a few hours, I forgot about my dead-end job, my stress, my mess of a dating life, and just relaxed. Then I checked my phone. That was when everything went sideways. I had a text from my boss, sent around 8 that evening, saying I needed to be at work the next morning by 7. Some emergency with a client, some deadline that apparently could not be pushed. I tried to argue. I sent texts. I called. I left a voicemail. She was not budging. If I was not there by 7 Saturday morning, I was going to have a serious problem. So I had a choice. Stay the night at Amanda's and wake up at 4 in the morning to make the 2-hour drive back, exhausted and rushing. Or leave right then, around 11 at night, get home by 1, and still get a few hours of sleep before work. I chose to leave. That was the decision. That single, stupid, completely normal decision that I have replayed in my head 1,000 times since. Amanda tried to talk me out of it. She stood in her doorway with her arms crossed, telling me I was crazy. She said the roads out there were bad at night. She said a storm was supposed to roll in. She said there were long stretches where my phone might not have service. I laughed it off. I told her I had a full tank of gas. I had GPS. I had driven at night plenty of times. What could go wrong? Famous last words. The first 20 minutes were uneventful. The roads were dark once I got past the town limits, but my high beams were working fine, and there was no traffic. Just me, my headlights, the faint glow of my dashboard, and trees on both sides of the road. I turned on a playlist and tried to keep myself alert. Then the rain started. It did not start with a sprinkle. There was no gentle warning on the windshield. 1 second, the road was dry. The next, it was like someone dumped a bucket over the whole sky. Rain slammed against the roof so hard, it sounded like gravel. My wipers were on the fastest setting, but they still could not keep up. The road ahead turned into a blur of water, darkness, and the occasional flash of lightning that lit up the trees for half a second. I slowed down to maybe 30 miles an hour. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles hurt. I could barely see more than 15 or 20 feet ahead of me. Just the cracked asphalt, the white line near the shoulder, and a wall of rain beyond it. Then my GPS glitched. The screen flickered. The map spun around like a compass going crazy. Then it froze. Signal lost, the robotic voice said, way too calmly. Great, perfect timing. I was on County Road 47 at that point, or at least that was the last thing the GPS had shown before it died. And County Road 47 barely felt like a real road. No proper lane markings, no reflectors, no guardrails. Just two narrow strips of worn-down asphalt cutting through miles of dense Virginia woods. The trees were so close to the shoulder that their branches scraped against my windows whenever the wind pushed them hard enough. That was when I saw the headlights. At first, they were just two tiny points of light in my rearview mirror. Way back, maybe a quarter mile behind me. I did not think much of it. It was a road. Cars drive on roads. That is kind of the whole point. But after a few minutes, I noticed something. Those headlights were getting closer. Slowly, steadily. Not like somebody was trying to pass. More like whoever was driving was matching my speed and then inching forward little by little. I squinted into the rearview mirror, trying to make out the shape behind the lights. It was a pickup truck. A big one. Maybe an F-150 or a Silverado. Dark color, probably black or navy blue, though it was hard to tell through the rain. And whoever was driving had their high beams on. They were not turning them off. Anyone who has driven on a dark road at night knows the rule. If you are behind somebody, you turn off your high beams. It is basic courtesy, basic safety. But this truck kept them on. Bright, white, blinding lights filled my entire rearview mirror. That was when I knew something was off. I sped up. Nothing crazy at first. I went from 30 to 45, which already felt dangerous with the rain and the curves. The truck sped up too. It stayed the same distance behind me, maybe 100 feet. Still high beams, still creeping. My heart started pounding. Not slow fear. Not the kind that builds gradually. This was sharp. Immediate. The kind of fear your body understands before your brain catches up. I turned my music off. The car went quiet except for the rain hitting the roof and the windshield wipers moving back and forth. Swish thump. Swish thump. Swish thump. I checked my phone again. No signal. The GPS was still frozen. I had no idea exactly where I was, no way to call for help, and a pickup truck was riding my tail on an unlit back road in the middle of a storm. Then, the truck honked. Not a quick move over honk. A long, angry blast. It cut through the rain and vibrated through my whole car. It lasted maybe 5 seconds, but it felt much longer. When it stopped, the silence afterward was somehow worse. I do not know what made me do it, but I took a turn. It was not planned. I did not see a road sign. I did not recognize where I was. I just saw a narrow road branching off to the right through a gap in the trees, and I yanked the wheel. My tires slid on the wet asphalt. For half a second, the car hydroplaned, and my stomach dropped. Then the tires caught. I was on a different road now. Smaller, darker, the trees were even thicker here, leaning over the road so much that their branches formed a tunnel above me. I checked the rearview mirror. Darkness, no headlights. He had not followed. I let out a breath I had not realized I was holding. My hands were shaking. My shirt was damp with sweat, even though the car was cold. I told myself it was over. Maybe the driver was just some local jerk trying to scare me. Maybe he had been drunk. Maybe he had gotten bored. Maybe he had taken another road. I was alone again. Just me, the rain, and the dark. For about 2 minutes, I believed that. Then my headlights caught something up ahead. At first, I could not understand what I was looking at. Something dark was stretched across the road. Then I got closer. It was a pickup truck, parked sideways, blocking both lanes completely. Engine running, headlights off. My whole body went numb. He had not followed me. He had gotten ahead of me. He knew these roads. He must have taken some backwoods connector or private lane I did not even know existed. And now he was sitting there, waiting. I slammed on the brakes. The Civic skidded on the wet road and stopped maybe 30 feet from the truck. For a moment, everything was still. The rain kept falling. The wipers kept moving. And through my windshield, through the blur of water and darkness, I could see him. A man sitting in the driver's seat. Big guy. Broad shoulders. Thick neck. He was just sitting there, staring at me through his windshield the same way I was staring at him through mine. Neither of us moved. For what felt like forever, we just sat there facing each other on that empty road in the middle of a storm. Then his driver's door opened. I did not wait to see what he was going to do. I threw my car into reverse, cranked the wheel, and hit the gas. The tires spun on the wet asphalt before catching. The car jerked backward. I nearly slid into a ditch, corrected too hard, and almost hit a tree on the other side. I managed a messy turn. It was not even a proper three-point turn. More like 5 or 6 panicked movements in a car that suddenly felt way too small. Then I was facing the other direction. I floored it. The headlights appeared behind me almost immediately. High beams. Blinding, filling up my rearview mirror like 2 angry white suns. He was back on me. I was driving way too fast now. 50, then 60. On a road that would have been dangerous at 30 even in perfect weather. The Civic hydroplaned twice. Both times, it felt like the tires lost all contact with the road, like I was floating on top of the water. Trees blurred past on both sides. My headlights caught pieces of the world for half a second at a time. A deer's eyes flashing in the darkness. A collapsed barn. A rusted mailbox. Then, everything disappeared behind me. The truck was right there. Maybe 30 feet back. Maybe less. I could hear its engine over the storm now. A deep, heavy growl that seemed to vibrate through my bones. I grabbed my phone and tried 911 anyway. No signal. No ring. Nothing. Just dead air. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat and focused on the road. That was when I saw a sign. One of those green highway signs, barely visible through the rain, up ahead on the right. I could not read the words, but I could see the arrow pointing straight. A highway. An actual highway. If I could get there, there might be other cars, other people, a gas station, a house. Anything. I pressed the gas pedal to the floor. The Civic's little engine whined like it was begging me to stop, but it gave me everything it had. 65. 70. The steering wheel shook in my hands. Water sprayed up from the tires in sheets. The truck matched me. Every bit of speed. Still on my bumper. Still high beams. The hole inside of my car was lit up white from behind. Then I saw headlights coming from the opposite direction. An 18-wheeler. A big rig. Its lights cut through the rain like a lighthouse beam. I started flashing my high beams. On, off, on, off. I was desperate for the driver to notice me, to see that something was wrong, to slow down, to call the police, to do anything. The pickup behind me noticed too. For the first time, it fell back. Not much at first. Then more. I watched in the rearview mirror as those blinding headlights shrank. from two suns, to two bright dots, to two tiny points in the rain. Then, as I reached the highway and the 18-wheeler roared past in the opposite lane, the truck disappeared completely. I drove for another 30 minutes before I felt safe enough to stop. My hands were cramped from gripping the wheel. My legs were shaking so badly I could barely work the pedals. I pulled into a 24-hour Waffle House just off the highway and sat in the parking lot under the fluorescent lights for a good 10 minutes before I could even get out of the car. Inside, the waitress took one look at me and knew something was wrong. She poured me coffee without asking and told me to take my time. I called Amanda from the restaurant phone because my cell still had no signal. She was frantic. She had been trying to call me for almost an hour. I told her everything. The truck, the chase, the roadblock, the man getting out, the highway sign, the 18-wheeler. When I was done, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Jenna, on County Road 47, did you pass a blue house with a tin roof? Kind of set back from the road?" I thought about it. I had. I remembered it because my headlights had reflected off the metal roof in a strange, distorted way through the rain. "That's the Crawley place," she said. Her voice had gotten lower. "A man named Roy Crawley lives there. He has a record. Assault, stalking, people around here avoid that area at night." My stomach turned cold. Then Amanda said, "He drives a black pickup truck." That was the moment I realized how close I had come to becoming a missing person. A headline. A local news story people would talk about for a week and then forget. I filed a police report the next day. I gave them everything I could remember, but it was not much. Dark truck, high beams, big man, back road, rain. They took it seriously, but without a plate number or clear description, there was only so much they could do. I still live in Richmond. I still drive. But a lot has changed. I never take back roads at night anymore. Ever. I do not care if the highway adds an hour. I will take the highway. I do not care if the GPS says there is a faster route through the woods or farmland. I am staying on roads with lane markings, street lights, other cars, and witnesses. I would rather be bored and safe than adventurous and dead. I also keep things in my car now that I never kept before. A tire iron under the driver's seat, pepper spray in the glove compartment, a fully charged power bank in the center console, a paper map in the door pocket. Because after that night, I do not fully trust my phone in the middle of nowhere. Paranoid? Maybe. But paranoia is just another word people use when they do not understand what you survived. And whenever it rains hard at night, I think about those headlights in my rearview mirror. I think about that engine growling behind me. I think about how he knew those roads well enough to get ahead of me and block my path. I think about how he was not just following me, he was hunting me. But the moment I think about the most is when his door opened. That silhouette stepping out into the rain. That 1 second where I had to choose between freezing and moving. And how, if I had sat there even a few seconds longer, I might not be here telling this story. About 6 months later, there was a local news report from the same county. A 19-year-old woman had been found walking along a highway at sunrise, barefoot, clothes torn, covered in mud, completely disoriented. She told police a man in a black pickup truck had chased her down a back road during a storm. She escaped by running into the woods and hiding inside a drainage culvert for hours until daylight. Roy Crawley was arrested 2 weeks later. From what I heard, investigators connected him to more than one attack in the area. I do not know all the details, and honestly, I do not want to. He is in prison now, and I hope he stays there for the rest of his life. But I still think about that girl. I think about her hiding in a drainage culvert in the middle of the night, soaked and freezing, listening for footsteps over the sound of rain, and I realize how lucky I was. I made one bad decision that night. I took a back road in the rain, and I almost paid for it with my life. So here is my advice. Next time you are driving late at night, and the rain is coming down hard, and your GPS tells you there is a shorter route through some back road you have never heard of, do not take it. Stay on the highway. Stay under the lights. Stay where other people can see you. And keep your eyes on the rearview mirror, because you never know who might be following you. Those were 3 unsettling encounters from the dead of night, each one happening during a storm, when the roads were empty, the houses were quiet, and help felt far away. Whether it was the open bedroom door, the stranger standing in the rain outside the gas station, or the pickup truck stalking someone down a back road. These stories are a reminder that sometimes the scariest things are completely real. If you enjoyed this rain-soaked horror compilation, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to Nightmare Reads, and turn on the bell for more true, grounded horror stories. Stay safe, keep your doors locked, and thanks for watching.